Hi everybody, thank you for joining us for another segment of How to Repair Your Transformer. Today we're going to be looking into how you can fix broken joints for your transformers. Doesn't matter the size, either small or big. Today we're going to be fixing MetroPlex, generation MetroPlex. It came out in 2012. This is one of the robots where a lot of us may have experience with having it drop or fell off from your display case or a display shelf. And because the fact that this is such a delicate joint, you'll see a lot of times the post that connects the two halves of the neck piece together, they get broken off, they get shear off. So instead of gluing the two parts together, what you can do is you can also do some minor repairs to it so that you can reuse the post in a way that if you do decide to take the head apart, so you can do your customizations, because there are a lot of like third-party kits out there where you can customize your MetroPlex. This is a way of doing it without super gluing the two parts. So today I'm going to show you what I've done to do this, and I'm going to kind of walk you through on how to put the post back into the neck piece and how to reassemble the head and the neck back onto the main robot. What you see in front of me here are the two halves of the neck that we're going to repair today. Just before we start, you got to know two things. Number one, in order for you to have access to the neck, you need to take the head out first. So what I've done was beforehand, I already took the two halves of the head out, and then I disassembled the neck piece from the main body. And you'll see how it's reassembled after a little later on in this video. But before we even start doing this, of course, you need to know what tool you need to use. What I did was I used a 2mm Phillip and a 2.5 millimeter Phillips screwdriver for this repair. I find my 2.5 millimeter screwdriver not to be as effective. It doesn't hold on to the screw as tight as I'd like to for the larger screws. So I went with a 3mm screwdriver. And for the screws itself, you got to be careful, because in this repair, right, I had to use a screw that's not too big, not too small. It would just fit right into the post snugly without stressing out the plastic and without making the plastic too loose after you do the repair. So what did I do for the screws? I went on Amazon, bought myself one of these laptop repair kits with a bunch of screws included in it. And the screw that I use is the 2mm diameter by 6mm long screws. In this case, this is a screw that I used. Is this size, okay? So I'll show you how it looks like. And the reason why I picked this one is because, number one, the screw length is just the right size to fit into the hole. And number two, it's just long enough to give it enough structural strength for the post after you repair it. And the reason why this is important is because the two halves needs to come together. So you don't do anything to one half of the neck piece. All you have to do is make sure that the screw goes in on the other side to support the two posts that are snapped off. And as you can see, the posts are wiggling because they were broken off. I didn't super glue it because for the purpose of this video, I want to show everybody that this is what I've done beforehand. So if you want to make your repair more permanent, be sure to put super glue or crazy glue or whatever you want on the other end of this post. That way, after you make the repair, it stays put. And you're probably wondering why not just use super glue? Because this is a neck joint. This is a point of articulation where MetroPlex's head moves around it. You're gonna have a lot of stress and a lot of tension, a lot of torque put into this piece. So this is why it's essential that you reinforce it with screws. So in this case, because the screws are snapped off clean, what I've done was I just took a small screwdriver and kind of just twist it. The plastic is really thin on this piece. So if you take like a 2mm screwdriver and kind of like poke, like slowly drill and poke through the piece of plastic, you can easily make two openings. Now, what I did was I started with the broken end, because when this broke off, you have this circle, like kind of like a ring that stays onto this piece. And using the 2mm screwdriver, I simply put the screwdriver tip right in the middle of that ring and just slowly push and turn it until it comes through the other side. Now, when you do this, right, it's preferable that you see the opposite side start to stress out a little bit. And this is like, we're talking like a pinpoint stress. Once you have that stress mark, take your screwdriver and poke it on the other into the other direction, because when you do that, it creates a clean opening. So once I do that, I take my 2mm diameter screwdriver and screw it in. And while I'm doing that, I keep this in place by pushing it down and then screw it in. The screw hole has enough bite into it so that when you put this in, it's going to give you a little resistance. So if you cannot push this in and keep it in place, use a pair of pliers just to hold the post in place and then screw it in. So once that's done, you do the same thing for the other post. Now keep in mind, for the sake of this video, I did not super glue it in because I want to show you how this is loose. But I would highly recommend that just before you screw it in, you put a dab of super glue at the end of the post so that it doesn't wiggle like this. But in either case, it still does the job. So when you put the screw in, right, you can see that these posts aren't going anywhere. Whereas before, they snap off and they don't really stay in place. Here, when I put the screws in, it stays in place and it doesn't move anywhere. Of course, assuming you put the super glue on. So when you put this back together, it'll fit in place like so. Okay. And later on in this video, you'll see that to put this back in, all you have to do is just put it back onto the tab on the neck that aligns with these slot, and then put the head back on. Now, what you see now in front of me here is a third-party product. Is a different MetroPlex head. It's slightly different from the original Hasbro head, but it has the same features. It has the same opening for this post, for you to put the neck piece onto. So when you do repair this, make sure that you know where the posts are, where the screw goes, and that you don't lose any of the screws. So for the head, you actually have 3 screws that connects the 2 shells together. There is an additional screw here, but that's not needed. You don't need to take it off for the purpose of this repair. So when you do take it off, right, make sure that the antennas are out of the way, or at least this antenna is out of the way, so you can have access to the screw. When you take the head apart, make sure you don't put too much force when you take the head out, or take the screw out, because you'll strip the screws. You'll need these screws later when you reassemble the head onto the neck piece. So again, I'm going to show you what I've done. So keep in mind, the post broke off before. All I did was I used a 2mm screwdriver, poke it into the center of the broken post area, slightly gently turn it until the tip of the screwdriver causes a stress mark on the other side. And then once you see that stress mark, take your screwdriver, do the reverse, and poke it the other way so that you have a clear opening and a clean opening for you to put the screws back on. Once you have the screw holes made, you line up the post, put a dab of super glue onto the post, and then you push this post, and then you screw the screw onto the other end. Now keep in mind, this is a 2mm screw, and this opening is roughly 2 millimeters. So there's going to be enough bite for the screw to go into for you to give it a structural strength, that's a structural support for you to put the other piece back on the other side. So when you do this correctly, you will be able to repurpose these posts and reassemble the neck piece so that the head can rest on it and turn and articulate on the neck. Make sure when you do this, the posts are lined up, because if they're not aligned up, or they're not aligned with the original positioning, and you can use that ring, that broken off ring, that white ring on the bottom, as your guide. If these don't line up, the base of the neck piece would not be flush, and that's going to be problematic when you try to turn the head later on. So make sure they're flush. Just to give you an example, when you screw it back on, Okay. Your post, in this case, my post turns because I did not put super glue on. I can just use a 3mm screwdriver and turn the screw back in. And then here you can see, once the screw is in, it is flush. So this is how you can make sure that you did this properly. Do the same thing to the other end. Start the screw off a little bit. Okay, and because this is turning on the other end, use your 3mm. Turn it. And this is how you know that you've done it properly. It's flush. So now we move on to the next step and reinstall the neck and the head back onto the main robot. So now that we got the two posts refitted into the main neck piece, as you can see here. Now that we have the post fit back onto the main neck piece, as you can see in here, we'll have to reassemble this onto the main robot. So before you do that, make sure this tab on your MetroPlex faces towards the back, because you're gonna have to fit this piece in first, the silver piece, that's part of the neck. And you see this slot, the T slot, you put that one in first. Then afterwards, make sure you have the slot facing down, and you make sure the posts are fitting in with the complementary part on the back. So it can get a little tricky, but what you want to do is you kind of want to wiggle it in like so that it closes. Once it closes, you want to take your 2mm screwdriver and put the screws back in. Now when you do this, right, to make sure everything stays in place, take the 3mm screwdriver, put it right behind the screw that you use to reattach the post that you've done earlier, just to make sure it stays in place. And then once you do that, hold the 3mm screwdriver in place while you screw back the 2mm screw. So this is what you do. And make sure that your 3mm screwdriver is not moving anywhere. And don't over tighten it. Just make sure that when you put it back in, it's just snug enough for you to put both of your screws in without stripping them. So that's what I did for this post. Now I want to do it for this other post. And again, apply a little bit of pressure on your 3mm as you're putting in the 2mm screw. And the reason why I use the 3mm is because it gives you enough hold on the opposite end screws so that it doesn't turn or it doesn't slip as you're re-screwing in the screw on this side. So right now, as you can see, it needs a little bit more tightening. So just repeat on the other side. And again, I have to emphasize that you cannot just screw this in too tight, because when you do, you strip the screw and then you would have to replace the screw. So just be very careful when you're doing this, okay? You don't want it too loose either. So I'll give it that little give. Once it's on, when it's tight enough, that's where you put the head back on. So what you do first is you make sure that the post on the neck piece right here, and make sure the silver piece is facing backwards, okay, right here. And then you would put this pig on the neck onto this hole on the base of the head. Okay, so you do that. And just to test it out, you should be able to pivot the head if you're installing it properly. Okay, now you take the other head, the other end of the other half of the head, and make sure you have all the screws. So you have 1, 2, 3 screws. Don't lose them, because it's going to be wobbly if you don't have them all. So I'm going to put that one down. Gently slide this other half of the head back onto the post. Now you might want to move the antenna out of the way, okay? It's a little tricky, but just be patient, be persistent, and just make sure it snaps back in place like this. And once that's done, use your 3mm screwdriver and tighten the screw on the side. And again, when you do this, make sure you don't over tighten it so that you strip the screw And make sure the antenna is out of the way, because if it's in the way, you won't be able to have enough clearance for you to use your screwdriver. So that's the first screw. Now the other screw's on the other side of the head. So move that out of the way a bit. Use your 3mm and tighten it. Okay, and again, careful not to over tighten. Okay, like so. And then last but not least, third and final screw. And that is placed here. And again, have to emphasize, don't over tighten this. Okay, so once that's done, reposition the antenna and do a load test. Just turn the head. If it's done properly, the head won't slip out of the neck piece, because if it is not done properly, right, the neck piece would just split and the head would come right off. But in this case, the head stays on, and that's how you know you did it properly. If you have any problems with either putting this back on because the neck piece doesn't line up, you need to go back. You may have to look at where your screw is when you reapply the post onto the neck piece so that they're not out of alignment. If they're out of alignment, the neck won't turn and the head won't fit on properly. So right now, when you look at MetroPlex's head and the neck area, you can see that it's flush with the base of the neck or the base of the head. Otherwise, if it's misaligned, you won't be able to turn the head like that. You won't be able to lift the head up. Even though he has limited articulation, there's a slight swivel on his neck. So if you don't put it on properly, it won't be able to articulate like this. And that's how you repair MetroPlex. Join us further in our further videos of how to repair your transformers. Like and subscribe to our page, and yeah, come back and watch for more repair tips from us. Goodbye.